The Darkside Detective Series. To date, as a whole, oh man, I love these games. Now, so far, it's only two games at this point, and each of these games follow actually very good formula for them. When the game is released, it has six main cases, with then three bonus cases that come out later. And in some ways, they call it a season. When these three bonus cases come out, they're usually spaced out in between release. The first one is usually a holiday one, with the second one being, I'd say, on the relatively short side, and of course the third one being, the finale. Now, this series of games is very whimsical. It's full of humor. It's done in the simplistic point and click style and pixelated games that came out in the beginning of the whole gaming world. This pixelated look sort of gives a nice little retro feel for the series. I love it. And you will find a lot of references to other sci-fi horror themed shows and books and movies and all that in these games. I mean, second case, in the first game, you go in a library and you can find references to the Twilight franchise in that case. You find the spirits of Aleister Crowley, Edgar Allan Poe, Howard Philip Lovecraft, even Douglas Adams and Terry Pratchett. And I think even Mary Shelley. I mean, this is definitely a plus. I mean, it gives that witty humor. I mean, the ghosts of Poe and Lovecraft are trying to determine who is the scarier writer. And they won't leave so you can check, find a secret passage and all that in the library until you somehow find something that drives them off to make them sell their argument, which in turn is a joke on the Twilight series. And I will bash that all I want. I do not like the whole concept of Twilight. And that has put a stain on some actors' acting careers. And they keep the humor up. I mean, you have Dooley, who is, well, if you've seen my playthroughs, I try and give him a distinct voice. And I use what I call my dumb guy voice, which sort of fits well for Dooley. I mean, Dooley is a police officer. He's not the brightest in the world. He is friends with Detective McQueen. Francis McQueen. And I think his name was supposed to be a joke on Steve McQueen. But he is, they have some good humor with these characters. And Dooley is an officer of the law who is also against the law, or, willingly, and he doesn't want to get in the middle of the stuff, but he has to. And you have so many memorable characters. I mean, which also helps with this franchise. I mean, McQueen, you got Dooley, you have McQueen's rival, who is McKing, and he's so full of himself. Even the captain of the police department, the head of the police department, their name is Scully. I mean, it's an obvious take on Dana Scully from X Files. And this is a game that really takes a lot of liberties and has its references on various things. I mean, you've got your full of himself TV personality, Brick Brickman. I think that was the name. Who always talks of himself in the third person, it seems, which is just crazy. You have these cases which are well designed to be humorous and easy to solve, and sometimes even the simplest things can throw you for a little bit. Because you don't necessarily think of them. And if you don't think of them, shame on you. And if you do think of them, shame on me for not thinking of them probably as quickly as you did. And they throw in some puzzles which are relatively easy. They don't take a lot of hard thoughts, but if you've never run across them before, well, it's obvious you'll make a mistake or something. And it's always full of clever humor, witty humor, and I loved it. And they break the fourth wall. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes it's subtle, and sometimes it's like taking a wrecking ball. I mean, they'll openly say that they didn't get paid. We moved more, but we weren't paid. They didn't want to pay for all that animation. And you gotta love some of the jokes. I mean, in the first game, in the second game, the first case, one of the things you need to get's in an auction house. But they're too leery about taking on certain things because three individuals brought something to them, and they found them to be phonies. Those three individuals being McKing, Dooley, and McQueen himself. I mean, when it comes to the one that he did, damn it, it's like, first, damn it, McQueen. Damn it, Dooley. Damn it, me. And all the references that they throw in there. Even if you don't know them and you look them up enough, you can make the connection. I mean, in the second case, in the second game, you have a reverse vampire. And he went to school with other vampires, which includes Count Orlok from Nosferatu, Dracula, though they don't necessarily say it's Dracula, they use Vlad Tepes, Elizabeth Bathory, I believe even the vampires from two other, Lestat, they mentioned Lestat from the Interview with the Vampire series, or the Vampire, whatever they called that. Vampire Chronicles, whatever, I can't recall. And a bunch of others. I mean, they pay reference to Star Trek because one of the guys in the retirement community is actually Star Trek similar show actor who always wore red shirts, and he never died. They were very good at throwing things in there that surprises you. And they made nice references in bringing back characters. I mean, you see the gremlins from the first the fourth case in the first game come back for some of the stories in the second game. You have the criminal Tam from the third case of the first game, and you see him pop back up a few times in the second game. And they even go with like the whole parallel world thing in a humorous way because, well, McQueen and Dooley are the Darkside division, but on the other side you have Ghoulie and McScream. And Ghoulie is supposed to be the smart one there. Well, it's the dark side, and they're the light side division. And there's some references to other games in there. I think there's a pirate costume of Guybrush in the first game that you at least see. You have a tentacle in a toilet. It's a purple tentacle. That was a nod to Maniac Mansion and Day of the Tentacle. Mentioned Day of the Tentacle, and there's this one guy I know of that was like, Maniac Mansion's in there. And gets distracted like Doug in Up was like, squirrel. And they are very clever. They were very clever with what they threw in there. Some of the logic is a little out there, but it's not a game that takes itself seriously. I mean, you can't take it. I mean, it's a joke. It's crazy, and that makes it such a good game, and a good series. It's lighthearted. I mean, you're not gonna get like jump scares or anything like that in this game series because this is more for humor. This is more for I'm gonna go in the door. I'm gonna see the monster. I'm gonna handle this as a person who thinks does, and then realize that you have Dooley with you, and of course that's not gonna fully work. I mean, and you got the helping of troubled kids, and well, that's what the Blood Wolves are, and Blood Wolves. They're equivalent Boy Scouts. And some of the crazy logic behind the whole series, and they have humor. I mean, an overarching. I mean, it can be beautiful when they design things to tie in nicely. I mean, obviously, the first game didn't necessarily have everything, quote, tie together so nicely. But the second game, well, it's like this. It's like when you have a first season of a show and you don't know how well it's going to fare, you're not necessarily concerned with overarching storylines. But A Fumble in the Dark, that was the second game, so yeah, there's more of an underlying story. I mean, the first one, these are the cases of the Darkside division. The second one, well, the Darkside got closed down. Darkside division got closed down. McQueen's still looking for Dooley. They somehow was allowed to keep the car. And overall, I mean, the cases tie together, somewhat lead into each other. I mean, you go from finding in the last case from the first game, the last bonus case, Dooley's stuck on the dark side. So the first case in the second game, we're trying to find Dooley, get him back. Then, now that he's back, we're going to go visit his grandmother, who's still alive and kicking. Then we're told that we have to head off to Ireland for Dooley's coming of age ceremony. And then all of a sudden, I mean, we're now investigating some other cases where we now also find that Dooley has been, beneficial to some people over in the dark side. And we get this big guy coming back, Jeff, and we have to stop him. And by the end of that case, the dark side's reinstated. Dark side division's reinstated. So, that's an underlying story arc for the second game. And it was also nice, like with the second game had some characters that were brought back from the first game. I mean, if you're in the middle of I think during the Christmas case for the second game, if you look through a telescope up at the moon or something like that, in one part you see Krampus floating up there, and he was stuck up there because during the Christmas case of the first game, when you got rid of him, it was because he's caused him to inflate and float out, and you know, and of course you got some like the nanny that you got rid of in the first that was behind the crime in the first case of the first game. Well, now she's becoming a Don over on the dark side after you defeated the returning Don in the sixth case of the first game. And you also had other characters show up that you didn't see for a while, all in the cleverest of ways. And they threw in jokes. I mean, even in with the last case of the second game, which was like three stories featuring other characters of the franchise in the lead. And he actually talked to McQueen and was like, now he gets to see all the crazy, he gets to be the experiencing one of asking the asking of questions. This is a great series, and I can't wait until they do a season 3, because I'd love to see what they come up with. And I gotta say one thing, even with all the cases, they are usually puns in and of themselves or jokes on existing things. Like, I believe the last one was actually a joke on the name of an anthology series from the 80s called Tales from the Dark Side. And that's another thing that you will find all sorts of references to pop culture, sci-fi, horror, you name it, you can find it in there. You just have to look hard enough. But what makes it beautiful is it's just the humor of it. If you've never played the Darkside Detective or Darkside Detective Fumble in the Dark, get them. I highly recommend them. You'll get laughs. You'll have a fun time with it. The pixelated look, the retro look, adds to its charm. You'll get laughs, and sometimes you'll catch some jokes. You might even catch jokes in there that you didn't catch the first time round. I still caught stuff when I was playing it and replaying the one, because for some reason all of my cases got wiped out or something like that. But again, like I said, this is a great game. I recommend it. Play it, beat it. It's a great game. You will not regret. You will never regret not, playing this game. It's whimsical enough to be very enjoyable. This whole franchise is. And like I said, I want to see three. Hopefully, we'll get three. Who knows? We may even get a surprise and have three get released next year. But that's all I'm going to say about the Darkside Detective Series to date. I thank you for listening, if you still are, and I hope you enjoy things and check out other stuff on the channel. Bye, all!